Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Welcome.
Hello. First things first, if you did not listen to the episode that just came out 2 days ago on Rachel's birthday, please do that. Actually, instead of doing that, what you should do is go to Rachel's new podcast, which if you're just hearing about this for the first time, Rachel did her own solo podcast. And you should go follow it.
I'm still doing it. It's not right in the past tense. It's a present tense
currently
thing.
happening. In fact, episode 1 just came out 2 days ago. You should have seen it. If you're in this podcast feed, you should have seen it. But
well, it doesn't mean that they listen to
okay.
it. And it's fine. If you haven't listened to it in this feed yet, I don't want you to. I want you to go to Forever Alone feed and listen to it. Subscribe.
So go to your favorite podcast app, wherever you're listening to this one, just go search Forever Alone and subscribe immediately. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the first thing that you need to do.
And then you got to listen to chapter 1 and be prepared for chapter 2. Wednesdays for the next 7 weeks. There'll be 7 episodes. And then who knows what happens after that? No, I don't. I surely don't. So I can't tell you.
Well, none of us do.
The universe has not informed me yet.
It doesn't like to do that. It likes to roll it out little by little.
Thing. In chapter 4, you'll hear more about this. It's like, it does like to tell you things.
Tease. I think it likes to tease.
And then you misinterpret it. And then you end up in a really, really, really deeply depressed state. Chapter 5.
Speaking of teasers.
Truly. So yeah, I would appreciate if you would throw your ears at that, which is not a thing anyone's ever said until right now.
Throw your ears at my new podcast.
I was thinking of that scene from Robin Hood Men in Tights where he's like, good people, lend me your ears. And then they throw, literally like they pull off their ears and they throw them at them, which is such a stupid gag, but it made me laugh when I was little. That's what I was thinking of. Anyway, 1994 Robin Hood Men in Tights deep cut.
Literally throw your ears. Okay. So I think that is all of our intro. I don't think we have any more
introductory statements.
Housekeeping agenda items.
Opening remarks.
I think we could just go right into today's new side chat. Which this is Rachel's idea.
Okay.
Of what we're getting into today. So
it is. You want me to just...
I want you to just talk about it.
Tell them what it is. Okay. All right. So, well, they probably know from the title of this episode, which I'm thinking of calling it Motivation Ain't All That, but I might call it something a little bit more obvious on the nose, like why you can't rely on motivation to get stuff done or to really
this is
do
about
anything.
Motivation, which will be in the title in some way, shape, or form.
That's where I was going with what I was just saying, was that it's somehow, shape, or form about motivation. Okay, so I was coaching one of my clients a few weeks ago, and she was talking about how difficult she sometimes finds it to get things done that she should be doing, but that don't compel her, like cooking healthy meals for myself, exercise, or more frequent, regular, consistent, strenuous exercise, going to bed at a reasonable hour, like unsexy, but necessary, healthy things that one should potentially try to find the motivation to do.
And I'm sure on a grander scale, she does want those things.
Of course. I think,
but in the day-to-day moment when it's time to do said thing,
no,
motivation is not always there.
Motivation isn't there. So the question was, how do I find the motivation to do things that I don't really feel like doing? Maybe that will be the title of this episode. It's kind of a trick. Because the answer is you don't.
Don't rely on needing to find the motivation, because most of the time you can't do it.
Yeah. So here's what I told her. Motivation is a really bad way to try to get something done because it relies on your inner ability to like work up the energy to feel like doing something. And most of the time, we don't really feel like doing what we're supposed to be doing or what's good for us in the moment. I asked her, I was like, listen, let's say you were the parent of a young kid and you got to get them in bed at a reasonable hour. You got to feed them some healthy meals. You've got to make sure they're moving their bodies and not wasting away in front of the couch playing video games all day. Are you as a mom going to be like, I don't feel like cooking them a healthy meal at all this week. I don't feel like making my 8-year-old go to bed. I don't feel like making my kid move their body. No, if you're a decent parent, most days, I'm not saying you're not going to like take them to McDonald's one day, right?
Watch this stupid movie.
But what I'm saying is most days, you're not going to rely on your motivation to make that happen. It's just going to happen. You're just going to do it because it's what you have signed up for in becoming a parent. It's not your motivation that drives you. It's something else.
Well, and in this scenario, it's you love this little child and you want them to be a healthy, happy, small, little growing human more than you want to go to bed instead of help them with their homework.
Right.
So in that moment, there's something greater, which is being a good parent to this child that you brought into the world. That is a bigger driver for behavior in that moment than whether or not you feel like doing what you need to do. The motivation may or may not be there, but something else.
The value is there. Like the values are there.
Yes.
My value system is that I want to raise a healthy kid. Not even I want to be a good parent. I actually think that doesn't have to be part of your identity. Because when you say, I want to be a good parent, you've just like, it's coming from a place of my identity relies on how good of a mom I can be today. I don't think that's a very good idea. Your identity should never hang on how you perform every day. Mm-hmm. But it can be rooted in your value system, which is, it's really important to me that I raise a healthy, happy person. And long term, these are the things that are going to lead to that. Short term, if I give in to every short term indulgence I want, which is don't bother feeding them a healthy meal any day, don't bother setting boundaries around screen time, don't bother making them go to bed at a particular time, you're going to have a terrible person on your hands probably, or at least not a very healthy one. Mm-hmm. So because you have a deeper value system that's driving you, you're more interested in you're more focused on long-term results. And so you're not really swayed by the short-term ups and downs of how you feel on any given day.
Yes. And on top of that, in this analogy that we're giving, which I think is going to be relevant to many of you who do have kids, but some of you who will not, you might be thinking, well, I do have a strong value around health. Like I value my health, but I just can't get motivated to go to the gym. Or I value, having financial stability, but I find myself spending when just because I feel like it in the moment. So sometimes there's this disconnect because it feels like I have this value, but that's not always winning. The difference in this scenario of being a parent is there's this extra responsibility that you feel to take care of a little human who is relying on you. And we all know, logically, little kids cannot take care of themselves. They actually physically need someone to do these things for them.
There's accountability.
The difference is, I actually don't think this is as much of a difference, but we have to make a mental connect here. Because when it's someone else other than you, you have to do it. I'm the parent. If I don't feed them healthy meals, they're going to eat junk, and I'm responsible for that. But the same is true for yourself.
It's true between you and you too.
You are just as responsible for your own health and happiness and well-being and values and goals as you are for another little soul.
Right.
But we don't prioritize that as much as we do for someone else.
It's just us.
It's just me. It's just me. That's how I want you to think about this more like you're being a parent to yourself.
Yes. Which we've talked about before. I'll dig up. We have an episode about parenting yourself that is from a while back. I don't remember from when, because I don't remember what it's called, because it's not, parenting yourself is not in the title. It's something a little bit more vague than that, because I didn't want people to not listen to it, because I thought that they wouldn't if they saw that in the title. So I'll have to figure out where and when that was, and I'll put it in the show notes. But what I told my client is, can you pretend like you're babysitting yourself? Because if you're babysitting someone else's kid, you're going to be even more attentive and concerned about their needs, because you're like, I have to give this kid back in better condition than I found them, right?
And if they're not, I have to explain what happened.
Right. So it's like, if you're babysitting yourself, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, you know what? I don't really feel like cooking a healthy meal, but you know what? I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to go to bed at this hour, because that is what taking good care of this person means. Mm-hmm. Now, again, are you going to do that every night perfectly or every day perfectly? No, that's not the point.
But there's also no such thing as a perfect parent. There's no parent who's doing that every single time without fail either. So that's okay.
It's more about a consistent habit and practice. But again, this is back to motivation. This isn't actually an episode about reparenting yourself, though. Again, I'm going to link to one about that. This is a very good example of how we can switch from, in one or a few big areas of life, thinking that I have to feel motivated to do something, and instead thinking of it through a different lens of, no, I don't actually have to feel like doing it. I can actually see it through a different lens, a lens where it's more rooted in my values and more rooted in wanting to take care of myself, and that being more important than how I feel and what I feel like doing any given day. Mm-hmm. I have more examples for us on this in different realms of life.
Okay. Do you want to jump into one?
Yeah. Okay. So Liz Gilbert talks about in Big Magic, one of the big themes of that book is that you cannot wait for inspiration to strike. A lot of people, and she's specifically talking about creatives, writers, artists, whatever, but a lot of people sit around waiting to feel inspired to sit down and create. And if you do that, you are never going to feel like doing it. Like it's going to be maybe like 2 days a month, maybe, that you feel compelled to do it. She talks about flipping the script and inviting creativity and inspiration to flow through you by having a practice of sitting down every day and doing it, even when you don't feel like doing it. She's like, do not rely on motivation. Like, you kind of get to kickstart the motivation and the inspiration by inviting it to flow by your daily habits.
Anyone who has ever tried to have a meditation practice will know this as well.
Right.
Your job is to just show up every day or whatever pace you're trying to meditate at, and sit down or go for a walk or whatever style of meditation appeals to you. You just got to show up. And some days you have this wonderful, transcendent, peaceful, calming one experience where at the end of it, you feel refreshed and renewed. And sometimes at the end of it, you're like, I don't even know what the point of that was. And you never know ahead of time how it's going to go. But your job is to show up. And most of the time, you don't feel motivated to do that. You have way too many other things to do. But the days where you show up and it goes really well, you know exactly why you're doing it. So the overall value here, again, is peace, or in the Liz Gilbert example, creativity or self-expression. There's something that you value enough to keep showing up, even when you don't feel like it, and trusting that if you do that enough, the magic will flow when it's time to. It will be worth it in the end. Same is true with exercising. Oh my gosh. I don't understand the people who genuinely feel motivated to go exercise.
I've never once felt like it. I've never once felt like, I think I want to do.
I think there might have been a few times where I felt like it, probably for the first 5 minutes of exercising. And then I was like, ugh. Where you just need to move. You've been sitting too long.
Sure, but I don't want to do that kind of moving. I just want to be able to somehow get like the perfect body by walking at like a very slow pace.
But if you waited for me to be motivated to exercise, it might happen twice a year.
I might I would waste away into just atrophied nothingness.
But sometimes once you start, it starts to feel kind of good.
Or not.
Maybe at the end, it feels you're satisfied that you did it.
Was it Mark Twain or someone who said, I don't like writing, but I like having written?
Exactly.
And so it's like, I don't like exercising. I like having exercised.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I can't rely on my motivation.
You can't.
Whatsoever.
You can't. This is also making me think about Gretchen Rubin, who's a writer and I think she has a podcast too. She has a quiz called the 4 Tendencies. I'm not sure we've talked about that.
We have.
Have we? Okay.
Yep.
Well, I should have known. We've talked about everything
in its own episode, but we've mentioned it here and there. It's come up.
It's coming to mind now because it's not really about motivation. It's more about how to help yourself follow through.
It's more
based
about
on how you're wired.
Accountability, like how to hold yourself accountable,
right,
to getting things done and to following through,
which is necessary when you're not feeling the motivation. Sometimes you need some kind of accountability, like a parent has all the time with a little kid looking up at them, being like, "I need you to keep me alive. I need you to keep me healthy. I can't do it myself."
Right.
So that might be another way to help you hone a little bit more in on how do I hold myself accountable? Because I'll tell you right now, there are some people out there who they do not care about having external accountability.
Yeah.
And there are some other
one
people.
Of them.
I know.
And it's hard
looking at you as I said it.
I can't, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care, but so it only is me who's holding myself accountable. And thankfully, I'm pretty good at that.
Well, that's one of the types, I think.
Yeah. I think it's called a rebel. I
think it's the rebel where you have to do it your own way. That's the only way.
And even then I'll sometimes rebel against myself.
Sure. I think I have a little bit of that too. Any people pleasers out there, you might enlist other people to hold you accountable. I mean, if you're going to have people pleasing tendencies, which, you know, we have a whole series of episodes on how to break free of your people pleasing tendencies. But if you have them, why not use them for good? Why not align some of your people pleasing with your values and say, I really want to do X, Y, or Z for myself. And I know I'm probably unlikely to stay committed if it's just me holding myself accountable. So I'm going to bring someone else into the mix. I'm going to bring my spouse in. I'm going to bring my best friend in. I'm going to bring my sister in, and I'm going to tell them what I'm going to do. And maybe we do it together, and I don't want to let them down. That's fine. You can find ways of building in accountability, just like when a parent has a kid, they sign up for at least 18 years of accountability for that little person's well-being. Mm-hmm. You can find your own version of that. And that quiz, the 4 Tendencies quiz, if you just Google it, it'll come right up. It will help you identify what kind of accountability works for you, because it's not all the same for everyone.
I have multiple more things I'm thinking about how motivation is just not applicable. I think motivation is rarely applicable to anything is my theory. Just don't know that it matters that much. Depression is another one. I know from lived experience that you are never going to be motivated to not be depressed. Because when you are depressed, you don't have the energy for anything. So motivation can't be the reason that you decide, I'm going to not feel like this anymore. Not possible, because there's such a lack of energy in that state. You can't it's hard to kickstart. So it has to kind of just be, I am going to, with some help, with some accountability, probably like from, for me, the last time that you can see more about this in chapter 5 of Forever Alone. But it was kind of going to therapy that held me accountable for slowly doing the work that needed to be done to pull myself out of that state. But I didn't feel like doing it. Mm-hmm. It was just like a thing that I was obligated to do, that over time, this made me feel better. Like this habit, this practice, like listening to these things or doing these meditations or whatever, like slowly helped me get back to a place where my mental health was more normal.
This is reminding me of something our very good friend Joanna said years ago that still sticks with me to this day. We still use this phrase. I think she was going to work that day and she just was not feeling it. And she's like, I'm just going to go through the motions.
Yeah.
Just go through the motions today. That sometimes is the kindest thing you can do to yourself. Instead of trying to drum up motivation or trying to find your inspiration or get up your energy for something, it's okay to give yourself permission to just go through the motions, even if you're not feeling it. And in a way, I love it because it gives me permission to not care that much and just do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You can give C effort. It's fine. Just average effort. Just go through the motions. And usually by going through the motions, like we've already mentioned, you will gain more energy or you'll start to get into it. And it's not going to feel so hard. But getting started is the hardest thing. So if that's the only way you can, it's like, today I'm just going to wake up and go through the motions.
Yep.
That's okay.
Okay. So I was listening. Another example is I was listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast. We Can Do Hard Things. And they had an episode specifically about sex, which I love all of their episodes. But this one was specifically about sex. And her sister, Amanda, who's her co-host, was talking about how this is a book that I do intend to read at some point, but Emily Nagoski's book, Come As You Are, she talks about how 75% of, I forget what the words for it are, but 75% of men are like what you would call instigators when it comes to sex, making it happen, right? 75% of women are like the opposite of what an instigator is. Like, I'm not going to be initiated. Like I'm not going to feel like it
for you to initiate.
And not from a place of like shame or like truly just like biologically, it's like not going to occur to me to get this started 75% of the time. Like that's just kind of how it's going to be. And there's words for each of those and what they mean or whatever. And she was talking about how like she's like, so when my husband's like, should we have sex? And I'm like, okay. And then afterward, I'm like, that was a good idea. But it is not an idea that would have mostly occurred to me. And then Glennon and Abby, this is what was so funny about it. They were like amazed by this because they have discovered this phrase called lesbian deathbed, which is basically what happens when you get two people together who neither of them have the instigator energy. And so at first they meet and they have like all this sex for like 2 weeks and then they never have sex again, basically. And listening to that, I really wanted to intrude upon their conversation. So this is me getting to do that because I couldn't do it listening to the podcast, but it made me think about Alison Armstrong, who is a writer and a speaker. And she is an expert on men and women and the relationship between the two. And she talks about this as well. I just recently like reread a portion of one of her books that talked about this, where she's like, if you wait until you feel like, especially for a woman, if you wait until you feel like having sex and until all the circumstances are right, especially for people who have like been married a long time or they have like kids or whatever, and they've got jobs and you're exhausted and there's laundry to do, you are never going to feel like doing it. Like the stars would have to align to get to the point where you feel like that. And you can't let something as important as your relationship hinge upon motivation, right? On feeling like doing something. So the motivation can't be that. The motivation has to be, I want to nurture my relationship. I want to create intimacy.
Right. I want connection.
Right. And so you might not start out
that I don't have the energy to do at the moment.
Right. And you might not start out feeling like it, but then you can get into it once you're doing it.
Right.
Right.
And just like you were just saying, something as important as your relationship should not hinge on motivation. But I would argue that's true in so many areas of life. Yeah. Something as important as your health shouldn't rely on your motivation.
Yep.
As something as important as your personal growth,
your money,
your career, these things, if they're hinging on whenever you're motivated to work on them, you're going to have fits and starts. Yeah. You're going to not make as much progress as you want.
You're really going to stall out at best because you're never going to be able to have momentum.
Yep.
You're never going to get anything going if it's only ever contingent upon what you feel like, because your feelings are changeable with the weather.
Yes.
Much like the weather, your feelings will very quickly cycle through sunny and cloudy and rainy and tornado and dry desert. And like, if every day you cycle through some version of that, because I can cycle through all of those in one day.
Sure.
Then at any given moment, what is it I feel like doing? 1 hour, the answer is going to be different than the next. That can't be the foundation upon which certain really, really important facets of my life hinge.
So you have to connect back to the bigger values. What do I, the real me, not the me that's feeling a particular emotion in this exact moment.
Right. Like the deeper me, not the experiential me.
Yes.
Like the me who's experiencing this moment versus the truer, more higher self kind of me.
Who can zoom out of this moment and see, what do I really want?
Right.
That's the you who gets to decide
right.
Where we're ultimately going.
Right.
And the you of this moment might have to use some tricks to get yourself to do the thing that you know you ultimately want to do. And it might be reconnecting with that bigger why. It might be figuring out your accountability style and building in accountability. It might be telling yourself, I'm just going to go through the motions. It also might be giving yourself permission to start really, really, really small. Yeah. Because sometimes when you're already tired and you don't have the motivation and you're not feeling up to it, and then you're like, but I'm going to go to the gym because I value health and it's okay to, I think this was in the book Atomic Habits that I started and haven't finished because that's what I do.
That's not one of the more meta things that you've ever said.
Right. I know.
Right. You're like, I'm going to read a book about having better habits, but I'm not going to finish it.
I'm not going to finish it. I know. Taking my own advice here on this one.
Okay.
But he gave the example of you can start out by just driving to the gym and driving home. And that is the goal. Like the goal is just, I'm going to drive to the
lame.
gym and I'm going to drive home.
But I get it. Cause I'm here. I might as well go inside. Right.
Or maybe it's just, I'm going to put on my workout clothes, or there's little things you can say, I'm just going to do that. And then once you do that, you're like, well, that was kind of dumb. I should do something
I should do a squat.
If I'm already at the gym, I should just go in for a second and stretch or something.
I do that. I'm like 5 minutes into a workout and I'm like, I want to stop. And then I'm like, well, I might as well just keep doing it. I'm already doing it. Yeah.
So you can give yourself permission to start really small. I think I also had, it's like years ago, somebody told me that he might have been a client. He asked himself to do 1 push-up a day. And he was like, once I'm already down in push-up position, it seems really stupid
to
stop after 1.
Yeah.
But that was the goal. The goal was to do 1 push-up every day. And however many extra he ended up doing was great.
Yeah.
But he almost always ended up doing more than 1 push-up because, again, you're already there. So it's okay to say, I'm just gonna make a list of the healthy groceries I want to buy. That's it. I'm just gonna make a list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna go to the grocery store and buy an apple. Well, if I'm already here, I'm gonna buy more than an apple, right?
That's such a waste of time.
Exactly. So make it as accessible as possible.
I'm trying to think about how this would apply to sex, and I can't go there because it's too.
I'm just gonna
too funny.
Take my shirt off. Exactly. That's all I'm gonna do for now.
Just gonna touch it once. But yeah, like maybe that's where it starts.
Maybe
that's fine.
But yeah, you can do that too. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you might have to kind of trick your brain into just do the thing that I know I really want to do. Yeah. And I don't have a perfect formula for what's going to work for you in the moment. I think that's why things like the 4 tendencies quiz is helpful because it makes it a little bit more specific. Things like knowing your Myers-Briggs type might be helpful. So I'm thinking someone who's a J who prefers routine and predictability, they might be motivated by structure. Whereas if you're a P and you're trying to structure everything, you're quickly going to fall off of that. So build in some variety, build in some choices. So knowing some of these different aspects of yourself might help you, again, kind of trick yourself into doing the thing when you're not feeling motivated. Because at the end of the day, the real you wants this, but it's hard to remember that every second of every day. And that's normal.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're not going to go into the question that just came up for me when you said that, which is, what if I don't know that I want that? That's a whole other conversation, right? Like, well, is the reason I lack motivation because I actually don't really care about this and it's not that important to me and I don't want it? That could be. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but the theme of this conversation has been about the big stuff in life, like the stuff that I know most of us want, right? We want to have healthy relationships. We want to have healthy bodies. We want to have healthy minds.
We want to have fulfilling careers. We want to have
a good relationship with money, right? Like the big stuff that we often find ourselves not motivated to do. That's what we're talking about.
And if you're not sure about a particular thing that you're trying to ask yourself to do I really want it or not? You could probably zoom out and say, there's something behind that thing that I do want. I want to be healthy. Do I really want to run a marathon? Or do I just feel like that's a thing that healthy people do, but I don't really care? Okay, we can zoom out beyond the specifics and say, I do want to be healthy. So there's a lot of ways of getting there.
But I don't have to run a marathon.
I don't have to run
that.
a marathon.
Exactly. And there's some things that only you can do. Like only you can eat healthy. You can't outsource eating healthy.
I wish.
Or I can't outsource exercise because God knows I would have done it if I could by now.
Truly.
But there are things that you might not feel motivated to do, like cleaning your house, that you don't have to do yourself.
Mm-hmm. Or meal prepping. You can buy those meal prep kits and have it delivered to your house pre-done.
Right.
There's things that you could, you don't have to trick yourself into doing every single day necessarily. If someone else could do it for you. Sure. Make your life easier.
I've never felt motivated to clean my house and I just stopped doing it. And now someone else does it. Mm-hmm. And I love it. It makes me feel so much happier and more spacious. So no, there's absolutely no value judgment on you if you lack motivation to do all of the things you think you should do. What I'm saying is you probably don't need motivation isn't going to just pop up everywhere. And you don't really need it.
Wrong with you if you don't have the motivation. You're just a human. Right. None of us have constant motivation for the things we want all the time. That's not how it works.
So if there are things that you don't need to be doing, that you're not motivated to do, and that someone else can do, great. Find someone else to do that. Mm-hmm. Or just stop doing it. If there are things that only you can do that are important to you, at least long term, when you zoom out, it is important to me to be healthy. It is important to me to have a good money situation, whatever. And only you can really do that. Then you don't need to rely on motivation in order to make it happen.
In fact, we encourage you not to because it's not going to work.
Yes.
I think, at least I used to, and probably still do sometimes, have this idea that one day I'm going to be someone who wants to do all the things that are going to make me into the healthy, happy person I want to be.
You really still think that?
I don't.
I've given up on that a long time ago. I gave
up on that.
Okay.
I think I've just learned the tricks now to make myself do it anyway. But I think you can get caught up in, there's something wrong with me. I need to keep growing as a person. I need to keep improving myself. And then I would be someone who's motivated to wake up and drink my green juice and do yoga and do all. Yeah.
Motivation is not the result of forcing yourself to be perfect. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's not a sign of evolution.
It's not. No.
The most evolved people still don't feel motivated to do the things they want to do because we're human. Yeah. So stop expecting that of yourself and find whatever works to make you just do the thing.
In fact, the people who you're looking at and thinking about who you think are motivated are probably actually doing what we're talking about in this episode.
Yep.
They're probably just committed, not motivated. Mm-hmm. They're convicted.
Their why is stronger than their motivation.
Yeah. So even if they don't, I'm thinking about someone like Tony Robbins.
There's no way he's motivated to jump into a pool of ice cold water every single morning. No one is.
Right?
You would have to be a robot, not a human.
Right. But he's an expert at, I'm doing it because I care and because it's important to me, not because I feel like it on any given day.
And I understand that I feel like I feel like a better version of myself when I do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That can be your reason. You don't have to like doing X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're asking.
Okay.
And we hope you don't ask that of yourself anymore. So permission to not be motivated and do the thing anyway.
Yep. It's not, let's be clear, it's not sexy. It's not fun. I know. I think that we have this visual of what it looks like when you're motivated. You know, I'm energized and I'm crushing it. I don't know. But that's not what real motivation. That's like a very false narrative about motivation.
And the worst part is every once in a blue moon, we do feel that way. And so then you're like, this is how it's supposed to be all the time.
Because every once in a blue moon, there's a blue moon. The stars align. Do you know what I mean? Every once in a while, that does happen. Uh-huh. But you can't rely on it because it's very rare.
Right. And it's okay if it's rare. You're not doing it wrong.
Right.
If your motivation is few and far between. That's just how it goes, which is why we're just saying, stop waiting for it. Just stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because who knows the next time you're going to feel motivated.
Yep.
Could be a long time.
Yep. Okay. Well, apply that to literally any area of your life because we just gave you so many different, pie slices of the pie chart of life that you could apply that to. All right. That's that.
Leave us a comment. Let us know.
Do you like to,
if you needed to hear this today, I feel like I might have to go listen to this again from time to time.
Oh, really? You're going to go listen to one of our episodes? Color me shocked. That's a once in a blue moon event.
Exactly. When I feel motivated to hear my own voice, which is very rare.
I don't need motivation for that. I have all the desire. I don't need motivation. Okay. So yes, you can leave us a comment. Link is in the show notes, or you can just go to clarityonfire.com if you're listening to this in, like the day it comes out or whatever.
And we will be back we'll be back twice next week.
Well, we'll be back next Wednesday with chapter 2.
I mean, we'll sort of be back. Mostly you'll be back on Wednesday.
I'll be back next Wednesday with chapter 2 of Forever Alone in this feed and on the Forever Alone feed, which is, again, my preference for where you listen to that. You don't have to be motivated to go subscribe to it. You can just do it, even if you don't feel like it.
I see you using that for your strategic purposes.
Yep. Always be selling yourself. And I'm not always motivated to sell myself, but God damn it, I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter how I feel about it.
And then we're back again on Friday next week with an expert interview.
Yeah, we're having an expert on who is an expert in human design. We've talked about a couple of personality type thingies today. The Myers-Briggs. We talked about Gretchen Rubin's quiz. Kristen and I obviously are up into the Enneagram, and we kind of created our own assessment, the passion profile quiz. So, but we've never talked with someone about human design. And it is a very interesting, complex thing that I'm very confused about. And so I'm very excited to
you and I
have this conversation
with it a little bit, but I still feel very fuzzy.
All I know is that I'm a manifesting generator, and I have really absolutely no idea what that actually means.
And I think I'm just a generator.
I think that's right. I don't get it.
Now, what that means, we're going to find out next week.
Exactly. So come back on Friday for what I hope is going to be a kind of human design 101 conversation with Sarah Bacon. So we'll see you then.
Bye.